So I was shuffling around in my camera bag this morning. I was kind of doing like a clean sweep, organizing what I had, what I didn't have, so on and so forth. Consequently, I got my GoPro working again, which is awesome. I can start taking some video outside, some footage, maybe make these videos a bit more interactive. But it actually got me thinking about the gear that I already owned, and specifically the 3 lenses that I owned. And although I have kind of upgraded 1 or 2 lenses in terms of kit, the 3 focal lengths is really what I want to focus on in this particular video, and the reasons why I think these 3 lenses and these 3 focal lengths are perfect for beginners who want to invest in photography for the first time. I'm Frank and welcome to my channel. If you're a beginner and you're interested in learning about photography and you want to know, or you have no idea where to begin and you want to know where to start in terms of buying lenses, then do stay tuned until the end of this video, because I'm going to give you my personal recommendations as to the reasons why these 3 lenses that I'm going to share with you guys are, in my opinion, the best 3 lenses for beginners to start with in photography. So let's begin with the first lens. And the first lens that was actually given to me was a 10 to 18mm Canon wide-angle lens. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you the lens itself because it's hooked up to my camera body right now. It's the lens that I'm currently recording on, but I'll leave a picture on screen for you guys to have a look. And the main reason why I wanted the lens above anything else was A, because I found it to be an incredibly quirky lens. I thought that the wide-angle distortion was really, really different from anything else that I had seen in terms of photography, and I thought it could be a really fun introduction to photography, in which case I was correct. I mean, at the time I was really interested in documentary, street photography, and I wanted to capture the action in a more, I guess you could say, panoramic view. So the wide-angle lens served that purpose for me really, really well. A wide-angle lens is kind of an acquired taste because of the fact that it has a much greater distortion factor than other lenses. But if you're interested in things like landscape photography, architecture, street photography, or even documentary photography, then you might want to consider investing in a wide-angle lens. At f4.5, the Canon 10 to 18mm is actually quite a decent lens. I mean, it lets in quite a bit of light, which is great if, like I said before, you want to focus on things like landscape photography, street photography, so on and so forth. You want to be able to freeze the action, possibly even get long exposure shots, in which case it's fantastic because that amount of light that you're letting in would lead to a very, very nice long exposure shot. So if I had to describe my experience with this lens so far, it's in one word, it would probably be reliability. This lens has been reliable from day one. Now, the only real negative that I could say, if there is a negative about this lens, is that it is a plastic lens, and it is one of Canon's beginner lenses, I guess you could say. But having said that, it's incredibly versatile for what it is, and being a plastic lens at 10 to 18mm, it's a pretty decent buy. It's not incredibly expensive, so if you're a beginner wanting to get into landscape photography, for example, and you want specifically a wide-angle lens, but you have no idea what to go for, then I would personally recommend this lens. It is, however, an EFS mount, which basically means that it most probably won't be attached to the newer Canon models, in which case you might have to invest in an adapter. But having said that, anything that is, I'm pretty sure, is a 7D or below, Canon 7D or below, you would probably be able to hook this lens up to your camera. The second lens, and the first one that I acquired myself, is a Canon 50mm f1.8 STM lens, which is this one right here, this tiny little 50mm. And this lens is a beast for portrait photography. I think that if you're a beginner wanting to invest in photography in general for the first time, then this 50mm is probably what you should be looking at. If I had to describe this lens in one word, it would most probably be fun. Because when I first got this lens, I just realized how versatile it really was. I mean, even though at 50mm, you might think that because it is a fixed lens, in other words, you won't be able to change the focal length while you shoot. It only shoots at 50mm. You may think that that might hinder your photography, but it's actually the complete opposite. And you'll find that shooting with this lens for things like weddings, or for things like family portraits, or if you're looking at shooting, I don't know, plants or product photography, it really, strangely enough, this thing is quite versatile, and I've loved shooting with it so far. I would highly recommend this lens. I think it's fantastic for beginners, and it's such a great introduction to photography that even someone who's not a beginner should probably have this in their camera bag. Now, like I said, shooting at 50mm might seem like a disadvantage, but trust me when I say this lens is well worth the money. It's a relatively inexpensive lens. It's a pretty decent quality build. I think it's fantastic. It ticks pretty much all of my boxes in terms of street photography, landscape photography, product photography, so on and so forth, that I'm happy enough to recommend this to beginners who want to look into photography for the first time. I think that if you are genuinely considering buying a body, then you should be considering purchasing the Canon 50mm f1.8. Now, the third and final lens that I'm going to talk about is, of course, a zoom lens, a telephoto lens. And I'm going to briefly show you mine here, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because I'm going to give you more or less of an overview as to the reasons why I think a telephoto lens isn't necessarily essential for beginners, but it's something to have in the bag as well. So this is mine. It's a Sigma 100-400. And the main reasons why I think having a telephoto lens is important is if you're going to go down the whole wildlife and sport photography route, and if you're going down that route and wanting to take photographs that freeze action really well, then having a zoom lens with integrated image stabilization is kind of a must. Now, a telephoto lens may seem intimidating, and it is. I can tell you from experience that I think the main reasons why telephoto lenses are a little bit more intimidating than other focal lengths is because they're a lot harder to manage. And I think that comes down to a variation of things, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And one of the big things that attracted me to purchasing a telephoto lens in the first place was that opportunities to expand your portfolio are huge. Even within landscape photography, I have a 100-400, and within that I can isolate certain parts of a landscape that I think won't work with my wide angle or even my 50mm. So having a telephoto lens can open up several other doors and several other interests in photography that you might have otherwise overlooked. Now, one of, I think, the main issues when it comes to telephoto lenses, and I think the main reason why I say that they are a little bit harder to manage, is usually down to the size, to the weight, is usually down to the fact that if it's built of plastic, if it's not built of plastic, if it's fully glass, like the one that I have, then it's very, very heavy. You also have telephoto lenses that don't have integrated image stabilization, which is a huge disadvantage when it comes to sport photography, for example. So there are several factors that make a zoom lens slightly harder to manage if you are a beginner, and slightly more intimidating. But like with everything, once you get past that barrier, telephoto lenses are incredibly fun to have, are incredibly fun to use, and like I said before, they do open up new doors in photography. I would also recommend beginners to really do their research before purchasing the telephoto lens for their camera body. And the main reason why I say this is because telephoto lenses aren't always the cheapest lenses. Even the ones that are on the cheaper side aren't going to be as cheap as you think they are. And when it comes to photographic gear, sometimes investing in that little bit more is worth it for not just the quality of your pictures, but especially if you have to present your photographs to a client, or if you have to demonstrate your photographs on a professional level. Also, check manufacturers like Tamron or Sigma, because when you're investing in telephoto lenses, sometimes manufacturers that specialize in just the production of lenses could have the cheaper versions of what you would spend on a Canon or Nikon lens. I didn't want to go too much into detail, but that's a general overview and my personal recommendation on the 3 lenses that I own, the 3 focal lengths, and what I think is best for beginners who want to introduce themselves to photography and have no idea where to start when buying lenses for the first time. Thank you so much everyone for sticking around until the end of this video. I will leave a few links to a few of the lenses that I did mention in this video in the description down below for you guys to check out in case you're interested in having a look at purchasing one of these lenses. Also a link to my Instagram account as well as my website and more. So once again, thank you so much, and like, subscribe, hit that bell button, and don't miss my next video. Cheers guys, peace.